Welcome and thank you for listening to another episode of Rod Talks, starring Rod Lyman.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you very much for that beautiful intro. I love it. So, if you didn't know already, if you didn't recognize that is the voice of Michael Malasnik. Did I say that right?
Smith.
Oh, Michael Smith?
Yeah, the S is silent.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, Malasnik.
Malasnik.
You know, Rod, after 10 years, you'll get it.
I should, right?
You're getting better.
I'm getting better.
Huh?
I am.
You're getting better.
I am. I'm learning it. You know, it's hard to learn.
It's a hard
names.
name.
Well, it is. You know, I've been used to calling you honey and deer and everything. So,
and don't you dare stop.
I won't. So you know, we have a lot of stuff. We always, whenever we get on the phone, we have a hard time ever getting off the phone. So,
yep.
So today, it's like, hey, I what are you doing? And he said, you're like, not much, just, you know, screwing around, flying around, doing something, you know. You're either killing zombies or something. So what are you doing today?
I am working on my presentation for next Wednesday.
Oh, what is next Wednesday?
Yeah, and now that you know that it's next Wednesday, I think you have an opening between 10 and 12, don't you?
I wish.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Yes, I know. I have clients all that day, so I have a lady.
Well, good. I'm glad you're busy.
Oh, I actually have a lady flying in from Dallas. I can't cancel that. Even though you're that special, I just couldn't cancel it for her.
No, I get it.
Yeah. So what are you doing next Wednesday?
I'm doing a presentation on belief, the power of belief. And, you know, it's kind of what do you believe and why do you believe it? And, of course, you know, with me, it's going to have a little bit of a dark taint to it. You know, what the schools really are and what the schools are really teaching, you know, indoctrination instead of education type of things.
Gotcha.
And, you know, how did we come to be so upside down and inside out? Why do we think that everything is out there? And of course, you know, when you have those beliefs, you're going to act on them, right? Your beliefs dictate your thoughts then generate actions. And, you know, I always think of it as combing the mirror. And so anyway, we're going to take a look at that. And then, you know, the Matrix movie will play a big part because, boy, they really tell you the truth. You just have to understand it. And, you know, get into, okay, here's the science behind how the human body really works. And here's the science of reality. And then, of course, you know, I love nothing more than connecting the dots between science, religion, philosophy, and mysticism, and show how they all have been saying the same thing. Well, of course, your religions and mysticism goes back thousands of years. But, you know, they've been telling this stuff for thousands of years that science is just now proving.
Oh,
I love that stuff.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you're absolutely correct. I mean, that's been something that, you know, everything's hidden. And I remember you doing a talk on that about hidden, you know, symbols and symbolizations in this world and that.
Hiding in plain sight.
Absolutely.
That's what they do. They hide it right in plain sight. And I love that stuff. In fact, the title of the show is Hiding in Plain Sight.
Is it really?
What do you believe?
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, that's just my thing. You know, I just love how they hide stuff in plain sight. I can't tell you how many times I see black cubes just driving around town.
Right.
I love it.
Yep, that's, you know, absolutely. Explain to everybody what the symbolization of a black cube is, actually.
So the black cube is Saturn. And in occultism, Saturn is Satan. And if you look at the Bible, you know, I saw him fall to the earth. Well, who's the ruler of this earth? It's Satan. And so basically when you're seeing the black cube of space, and it's in movies, it's in video games, it's everywhere. It's just amazing how much they throw that in our faces. But basically I think that's just to remind you that we're in a matrix. It's this place, this physical world. And, you know, and I just love all the symbology and the occultism behind it, and is another example of the black cube. When you look at a cube, generally it's tilted towards you a little bit, and it forms a hexagram.
Right.
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 Has anyone ever tried to put a hex on you?
Yes.
That's where that comes from.
Yep. There you go.
And when you look at Saturn, well, just staying on Saturn for a minute,
mm-hmm.
The North Pole is a storm. There's a storm on the North Pole that somehow creates this hexagram. That's the North Pole is a hexagram. Wow. And then of course, the South Pole is the all-seeing eye of Horus. If you look at the South Pole, it looks just like an eye.
Yes, it
does.
You
can imagine, back in the days of ancient Egypt or Kemet, right? We're going back a long time. We had the black sun.
Right.
The sun that we have up here right now wasn't around back in those days. It was what they called the black sun. Well, the black sun was Saturn. And so imagine, you're just doing your thing, maybe building a pyramid or an obelisk or whatever they did back in those days. And you look up and you got this planet the size of Saturn, right? Heck of a lot bigger than Earth.
Yep.
And at the South Pole, what you're looking at is this gigantic eye.
Yeah.
It makes perfect sense, the all-seeing eye. I get it.
Yep. Well, you remember my story when I died, I became an eye.
You became what now?
An eye. I became an eye.
The all-seeing, sure, yeah.
Yeah, and I could see all around me. I mean, everywhere. And it was all my senses added together as an eye. It was, that's what, when I died, that's what I saw and I felt. And so, yeah, that symbolism of that is just amazing to me too.
Absolutely. And think of near-death experience. People who have died and come back, they all had different experiences.
Right.
But a very common one is, they die on the operating table.
Right.
And they float above the room and they watch their body and they watch everybody operating and doing what they're doing. They're watching.
Absolutely. That's exactly what, was me, is that, I died in the hospital and I watched the walls melt and everything. And then I just became this eye, it's just a fascinating aspect about the symbolization of all this. I just love it.
Oh, absolutely. But I got to tell you though, Rod, if you saw the walls melting, that sounds a lot more like an acid flashback.
Well, you know me, I'm a big druggie. I have never touched that stuff, and that's my story.
For the record, but I had to say that.
I know. That's my story.
Got to shake up your audience,
of course.
Make them wonder about you a little bit.
Yeah. But hey, I have a question because I'm going to be doing a class myself coming up here.
Oh,
it's about walk-ins, and we're also going to be talking about reptilians.
It's so funny you say that because, walk-ins are not a common conversation, and somebody just brought up walk-ins 2 weeks ago to me.
Oh, my gosh. It started about 2 weeks ago in a class that I was teaching. I brought it up, and everybody just was like, everybody's hands went up. I mean, there's 20, 30 people in the class, and as soon as I brought walk-ins up, they raised their hand. They're like, what's that? What's that? So they made me do a class on walk-ins. They want me to do a class.
Now, is that not kind of rooted in or generally taught by shamanism? Is that I always put shamanism together with walk-ins. Am I smoking crack? Or,
well, you are smoking crack, but no, that's.
Well, I had to give up the acid. I kept having all these flashbacks.
What the heck?
Everything tasted like and looked like Fruit Loops.
Fruit Loops, yes, I can see that with you.
I sure did listen to a lot of Pink Floyd back then. But anyway.
Dark Side of the Moon. Anyway. So no, it does. It has a lot to do with shamanism, but it's also has been brought over through a lot of different belief systems and religious belief systems. But it's the basis of my understanding has always came from the Native American in shamanism. But there's shamanism not just in Native American though, in the philosophies of this is that, a walk-in, we all carry this thought process that there's a possible that we're walk-ins. And so I had learned a long time ago how to do a regression for walk-ins. So we're going to play with that. Yep. We're going to play with the regression of walk-ins. We're going to kind of learn when our walk-in came in, how many times we've been a walk-in, and it's kind of fun. And a lot of people don't realize is that the lower 3 chakras is man, and we have a contract with life with the lower 3 chakras, which is man. And the upper 4 chakras are God. Those chakras, what we carry the information in those chakras stay with us even after a walk-in comes in. So it's just a fascinating concept, that, the man concept stays, which means we still have contracts with our children. We have still contracts with, our physical being, our jobs, whatever it is in that. But if we have, the contracts, stay with that, but we change the contracts of our heart, our throat, our third eye, and our spirituality, it tends to grow even in that aspect.
So how common would you say a walk-in is?
How common is it?
Yeah.
Well, it was really interesting in the class of 30 that I had, and that I counted 28 walk-ins.
What?
Yeah. But you tend to remember that like energy attracts like energy. So, but if I'm in an airport watching people and there's a duality to their energy. When you have a walk-in, you can see the duality of the energy of it. But in an airport, it's not as common. But in a setting of where you're just sitting there in a spiritual sense, in a spiritual gathering, that mostly everybody is a walk-in that comes together in a spiritual gathering.
So you're talking about, so a walk-in, isn't that, and you're way ahead of me on this one, Rod, but is that not kind of the concept is, so your soul dies, well, it doesn't die, but it leaves your body and another soul or aspect of your soul comes in and takes over? Is that kind of the...
Oh, absolutely. Yep. So it's every trauma we ever had, any impact or trauma we ever had, in that our soul gets kicked out of our body. And it has a choice during that time to come back as it was or change. And now, remember, there's only so many countable souls in this world. So we have the hollow people, we have, the reptilians, we have all these different types of people that are walking this earth, but we exchange these souls amongst us, and that's why there's so many people that seem familiar to us. There's so many people that seem like they're the same person or something. And it is. And then we also have doppelgangers that are,
I was just going to say that. Yep.
And that are dimensional walkers and everything else that come within the other dimension. So the commonality of this is, it really depends on where you're at to find that commonality.
And so now you said something that I had never heard before. So you're saying so this happens as a result of trauma,
right?
So okay. So I mean, is there a degree of trauma? Are we talking about a car wreck trauma?
Yes.
Or Obama nuts when Trump was elected? I mean, what kind of trauma are we talking about?
Oh my gosh, it's the trauma of impact usually, or the trauma of a narcissistic person with an empath, and that's just different types of traumas in that. But it's usually an impact trauma that causes this change in a person.
So it is like a car wreck or something like that?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, that fits in with what I had heard. Yeah, because I remember years ago reading something about, because it was the first time, and you may have even been the one that brought it up to me. I remember researching it because I had no clue of it. And it seems to me that there was some story I kept reading. It must have been a common one or a popular one or something. But, some guy, and it seems to me like he was Mormon. He was deeply religious and whatever it was, but he was in a car wreck, and I don't know what happened, but his family reported that after the car wreck, he was just a completely different person.
Yeah, I remember that story. Yes.
Yeah. So that's interesting. So there's a lot of walk-ins.
Yeah, there is. It's more than you realize. I mean, a lot of people that were walk-ins at young ages don't remember their childhood. And that's a huge, big thing right there. If you don't remember your childhood, you know
before they're 8.
Yep. What?
Right? Trauma. Yeah, trauma.
Exactly.
The brain hasn't formed yet.
Exactly. And so you create this whole thing, but they can remember a past life better than they can remember their, young ages. And I don't recall my childhood at all. I mean, but I can recall my past lives.
Oh, see, you blow my mind.
Yeah, whatever.
No, seriously, I think that's cool. I've got no clue about my past lives. The only thing that seems to keep coming up, believe it or not, is of course, my affinity and relationship with Marie Laveau.
Right. Yes.
And whether it was Christine Salter or many other very gifted people that do the stuff you do. Again, I don't know how you do it, but they talk to dead people or they're psychic or whatever you do. But a lot of them have all come back with the same story, which is they sense that there's some kind of very close connection between Marie Laveau and I, and that's why when I ask for things, they happen.
Right.
And but they all say that Marie Laveau was a free woman of color back in the 1800s down in Louisiana.
Right.
And she was privileged because she was married to the mayor, lived in the mayor estate, and the story goes that, and I keep hearing this from all these different people, and they don't know each other. They're not in the same room listening. So you got to connect the dots when very dirty, right? People and unconnected things are all doing and saying the same thing. It's time to start looking at it.
Right.
But they all think that I was a musician. Of course, I'm still a musician.
Absolutely.
And that I was a musician, and that's how I gained access to get into the mayor estate. And she and I were lovers. I mean, she was married, so we weren't married, but we just, did what young kids in love do, and so there's some kind of real close tie that she and I have, and that's the only thing that and I've heard that several times. So that's the only thing I know about past life. The only other thing, now that I think about it, Rod, when we moved here from Ohio back in 1978. I was a young kid, and I was taking accordion lessons, and we lived in Tempe, so I used to go to a big store called Milano's Music in Mesa, and it was a Mormon family that owned this big music store, and it was Mrs. Milano that was my teacher, and I remember her telling my mom once, she says, I think your son is a reincarnated Tchaikovsky or one of those, because at 6 years old I was writing music on the actual, nobody does that anymore, but the bar lines and all that stuff, and my mom was really taken back by that because we come from Minnesota and Ohio,
right?
And we didn't have Mormons there, and the whole idea of reincarnation just wasn't in the Lutheran vein of things.
Absolutely.
And so my mom really she didn't know what to think. On one hand, it's like, well, you just said my kid's a born again Tchaikovsky. Well, that's nice, but on the other hand, I'm not sure I want somebody that believes in that stuff teaching my kid accordion.
Oh my gosh.
Oh.
Wow.
So anyway, I mean, hopefully, if all goes well, my God and Master Jimmy Page, I hope he lives long and prospers. But he's getting up there. So when he leaves, maybe he'll walk in and take over my body. Wouldn't that be cool?
So all I have to say about your accordion lessons is papa.
Is what?
Papa.
That's right. Oh yeah. Yeah, it's hard to rock out and sound like Led Zeppelin on an accordion. It doesn't
come
work.
on. You remember, I grew up in the Midwest myself, in Minnesota, South Dakota area, and there was a lot of accordion people. So.
It's just those damn Polacks.
Yes, it's the Polish in us both. Yes, and the Norwegian.
And I can say that because my grandmother on my father's side was an immigrant from Poland, and my father's father was an immigrant from Slovakia. So I can talk smack about Polacks.
Oh, I can
even
too.
though I don't think they're not the cool joke animore. Wasn't that the 80s, how many Polacks does it take to change a light bulb or something?
Right.
Yeah.
I think it was 1 to hold the light and 6 to turn the ladder.
That's exactly right. But boy, they can play a mean accordion.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I grew up in that type of family. I love it. Norwegian, Polish,
Yes,
German.
the Norwegian, pierogies, and the lefse. You remember the lefse?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Out here they call them tortillas.
Tortillas here, yeah. Oh my gosh. There's a place that's called Soup and Sausage off of Cactus and after Thunderbird and 7th Avenue here in Phoenix, Arizona. And it is delicious. And it's old home cooked meals and that, so we have to do that one of these days.
We will.
Yeah,
that
we'll
sounds great.
That,
Get
man.
a good homemade pierogi.
They serve Russian, Ukrainian, Norwegian, and Polish beer.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Not that I drank it.
We're going to be there a while.
They're big bottles too.
I don't think I've ever had a Russian beer or a Norwegian.
Oh,
maybe
gosh.
When I was in Denmark, I had they like that white wheat beer.
Oh, yes.
Which is really good if you're trying to get a big belly.
Right. Absolutely. Oh, jeez.
You knew who you were calling, Rod.
Yeah, I know. This is Rod Talks, and this is
Rod Talks.
We just talk, man. So,
that's right. It's not for children.
Absolutely. So, how can people get a hold of you, Michael?
They can't. I don't exist. I'm not here, and I am thinking about teleporting down here with the Palladians, maybe sometime in June.
That's interesting.
Right now,
that's where the lizard people came from. That area, too.
What's that?
The reptilians, the lizard people, came from that area.
That's a good one to talk about. Yeah. To answer your question, best thing is go to my website, eyesthatseek.com.
Eyesthatseek.com.
Eyesthatseek.com, and you can email me from there. And in fact, speaking of which, this is a totally cool story based just right on that same thing. I get this email. This is about 4 months ago. I get this email it was through my website, and it was from a young girl in India.
Oh, wow.
And she says, hey, Michael, I'm a young girl in India. I'm on my spiritual path, and I was just Googling things. And she says, I ran across a couple of your videos, and then I went to your website, and basically I just resonated with you. And she says, I just wanted to reach out and thank you so much for, all your wonderful teachings, etc. And I thought, boy, that was nice of her. And so it had to have been one of Dave Marsh's videos or something that she saw.
Yeah. Yes.
Exploring the human journey. But she actually reached out to me through my website, and we still yak back and forth to this day. And I just think that's really cool that somebody on the other side of the planet found me and emailed me through my website.
Well, and a female too.
And a young one, 19. Yeah,
19.
She's bright for 19, and she's already thinking about this stuff.
You know what? It's really interesting. Is some of my classes, they're getting younger and younger in my classes.
Are they?
It is really interesting. Is I had, it was like 4 mothers and 4 daughters that was in one of my classes, and the daughters were 17, 18 years old, and it was kind of into a development type thing. And these kids picked up on this stuff. It was just amazing. And then this lady brought her son, and he was 17 years old, and his thought process and oh my gosh, I was really impressed by it, because what's happening nowadays is the parents are allowing their kids to have that spiritual movement and praise them upon it and push them towards it. And it's not just your imagination, it's not just this, like we were, it's your imagination.
We were indoctrinated in the church.
Absolutely. Yeah. Both of us were Lutherans. We grew up Lutherans.
Yeah, Lutheran. Yeah, you can't be a Norwegian Swede in the Midwest without being one.
Yep, Salem Lutheran. Mine was. So.
Oh, see, I was almost Wisconsin Senate.
Oh my gosh.
So now you get the fire and brimstone and whips and chains, right?
So there's no dancing in my town, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So anyway, but yeah, these young kids, it's just, I'm very impressed with it. And, there's so many people that are making fun of the millennials and everything else, and that they're having a different thought concept because they're thinking spiritually. They're not all thinking methodically. They're not all thinking logically, and things like that. They're thinking in a spiritual sense.
Well, it's that Common Core math.
Oh, exactly. Yes.
It's redone their neural net. Yeah. Their synapses are snapping in a different way. Yeah. May you live in interesting times.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times I say that.
Right.
And it's so darn true. But people, I think, and now especially the younger kids that we're talking about, dogma. I mean, because that's what all this is. I don't care if you're talking government, you're talking education, you're talking religion, or any of the other big foundations that program us, right? Let's call it for what it is.
Yep.
They're just not having it.
No, absolutely not.
Just like this whole idea of getting a job and making money and earning a living. No, they're not. They're not digging that either.
Absolutely not.
Right. And that's where the universal basic income and the Chinese social credit scoring system will be just in time.
Yeah, absolutely. Perfect. So,
but it is interesting that they're open to.
Oh gosh, yes.
I think it's awesome. I really do, and I think I think they're tied. They're probably tied. You tell me your thoughts on this, but I'll bet you they're tied far more to the Aquarian energy than the Pisces that we were born into.
Well, absolutely, they are. It's the age of the Aquarians right now, and so yes, they are really tied to that. And the thing is that there's more of a water flow to this, a water element and everything else that where we had more elements of earth, and which was really interesting. Is so this is they're easier going than what we used to be, in a sense.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yep. But I hate to do this, Michael, but we're going to have to wrap this up because I have a client coming in and I want to do more of this. There's Rod Talks and everything. So
I like Rod Talks.
I like Rod Talks too. I started by just calling people and said, "What are you doing?" and not telling them I was on the air with them. But that didn't work out very well. That didn't work out very, very well. So I now ask them what they're doing.
That's too funny. You I know I can't. There was somebody that did that on a radio show where they had some guy on, and the guy just wanted to call his wife at work or something to do whatever. And however it planned out, it was a spontaneous thing, but he wound up finding out she was cheating on him over the air. Do you remember that story?
Yes. Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah, so don't be doing that stuff, Rod.
No,
people are cheating. Leave them alone.
Absolutely. I just let them do it. Yeah. What are you doing? I'm with my girlfriend. My wife doesn't know. Well, she does now. Dang it,
Oh gosh, that was such a funny thing.
Yeah.
But Rod, I will respect your time and let you go. But thank you so much for calling me for Rod
Absolutely.
Talks.
After we hang on a little bit, so I'm going to wrap this up. But hang on, so I can say goodbye to you in on a more personal aspect. But
sure.
This was Rod Talks, and we had Michael on here, and Michael's website again was
EyesThatSeek.com.
EyesThatSeek.com. I love it, love it, love it. Reiki Rod is my website. You can get a hold of me there, or you can call 480-788-9580 for any information, or you would like to be on Rod Talks, and just let me know. We could have a lot of fun. That Michael, it's always a pleasure. Thank you very much.
It is, Rod. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for being on Rod Talks. Have a good night.